tackle the unaffordable housing crisis in our province. For tenants, we can have a rental cap, which means they will not be have their rents raised by surprise and arbitrarily in ways that they can't know, can't control, and often can't afford. Two, for landlords and homeowners, we would advocate spike protections pegged to inflation, which means that property assessments would not be inflated 20%, 30%, 40%. Again, seniors on a fixed income are seeing these kinds of increases. And then, of course, they're told, hey, good news, your property taxes are only increasing 10%, not the 30% of your increased assessment. You feel good and terrible at the same time. What we'd want to see for tenants is that it's the landlords who have to apply to raise the rent above inflation, not the tenants who have to apply for relief on raised rents. Okay. So this all just makes sense for both tenants and landlords. That's a roundup of part three today, of the three parts previous. Today is part four of our talks about unaffordable housing. I think it's the last one. I want to talk about the third important measure on this three-legged stool in our Live for Five, which means I have just about 3 minutes left here. And that is social and community housing. Here's something that has not happened in 38 years. See if you can guess. What has not happened in 38 years in the province of New Brunswick? That was the Jeopardy music. Did you guess? Not a single new public community housing unit has been built in 38 years in New Brunswick. That is, gee, I wonder why we have a crisis, right? This is starting to make sense. The Green Party was founded in 2008 and has been ringing the bell on how housing has allowed to become a commodity to be speculated upon and invested in, kind of the Wild West, letting the free market decide what people pay for housing. Well, housing is an essential right. Did you know that there are two main indicators of health in human beings? Those are income and housing. We cannot allow housing to become precarious. There are currently 10,000 people and families on waiting lists for community and public housing in New Brunswick. I want to talk about what the current government has done. They earmarked $33 million in the 2022-2023 budget for community and social housing development. Again, never been done in 38 years. Kudos. Of course, it only happened when there was a crisis, right? We've seen this crisis coming for years and years. The government finally said, hey, let's build some units. Well, last year it came to light that when we came to the table and said, all right, government, out of that 33 million, how many units did you build and how much did you spend? It's easy to set aside however many $1 million in a budget to accomplish something. But accomplishing the thing, once the money is set aside, is the actual work of the project. Well, guess how much they spent? Jeopardy music. If you guessed $4 million, you would be correct. $4 million out of 33 million was actually spent on getting community and public housing units built. That is not enough. The reason for that is the New Brunswick Housing Corporation has been hollowed out for years and years by liberal and conservative governments. It is not enough. Not enough is being done. Again, Greens have been talking about this for years. Greens would change that because Greens believe in affordable housing. So we have 10,000 people on a waiting list, like I said, in New Brunswick. I was at a St. Stephen Council meeting last night. We have a community and public housing unit going up in St. Stephen that will have 5 units. There are currently 95 people and families waiting on a waiting list just for the municipality of St. Stephen. We have 5 units being built, 95 people and families waiting. This is an indication in our province, $33 million more has been set aside in the budget by the current government. Are they going to spend another 4, maybe 8 million out of that? Setting aside the money is only half the battle. It shows an intention. We need more than intention, we need action. Canada is a member of the OECD nations. There's 38 nations, economic development partners. And out of the OECD nations, 7% of the housing on average of a country, 7% is social and community housing, public housing. Canada falls well under that, less than 4%. The Netherlands, for example, 35% of their housing is social and community public housing. I am going over time. I wanted to bust the myth that this costs us too much money. If you think, oh, social and community housing, public housing, that's a huge cost on the government. The taxpayer has to pay for that. It absolutely doesn't. When you research the numbers, basically the government becomes like any other builder or investor, goes about it the same way, builds apartment buildings, community and public housing. There can be a modest profit for the taxpayer on community and public housing. It does not have to be the drain that maybe the stereotype, the uninformed stereotype, says and claims it is. Okay, so that is where I want to leave it. I just wanted to cover that over the last few days, saying rental caps for tenants, property tax spike protection for owners, and community and public housing hasn't been worked on in 38 years. It's time to get that done. Okay, earmark the money in the budget, but only $4 million out of 33, it's not enough. So now hopefully you have a picture of why we are where we are. I want to talk about getting creative, and so I'll do that tomorrow. Creative with tax revenues. I think there's this sense that, again, I keep talking about this, nothing can be done. The system is too big. It's out of control. Tomorrow, I'd love to just share with you property tax versus land value tax. I don't know if you've heard about this. Google it in preparation. It is a way of reforming the tax system that would greatly alleviate the problem of not being able to build any sort of housing. Now, building houses is not enough. That's today's theme as well. You can't just set builders to work and then again allow the market to decide, and then rents are $2,000, $2,500. We need affordable rents, which means you have to cover this off with public and community housing. And the government can be a holder of that, and it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. So join me tomorrow. I'll talk about property tax and land value tax, just thinking creatively. As an example of when you think status quo, nothing can be done, it can be. I'm running to be your MLA in Saint Croix. A lot of people say you can run a ham sandwich in Saint Croix and people will vote for it if it's conservative. I want to change that because Green has solutions. I have solutions. Let's do it together. Courage to participate in this change for our common